The title of today's episode is Out of Thin Air. In case you didn't know, air pollution is one of the greatest environmental risks to our health. According to the World Health Organization, almost every organ in the body can be impacted by air pollution. Reducing it could potentially reduce the diagnosis of heart disease, cancer, asthma, COPD, and other acute respiratory diseases. Today, we're joined by a special guest, Joshua Shodeinde, who will share his experiences as well as reveal the hidden details that revolve around some environmental injustices that we currently are exposed to. Today, we have Joshua Shodeinde with us. Joshua brings to us a plethora of experience. He has a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. He has a Master of Divinity from Faith Theological Seminary, and he's the assistant pastor at the Outlet Church. He has 8 years of experience in the environmental field, working on the development of air quality and reducing the effects of climate change. I'm very excited today to discuss all the hidden parts of our Earth, the air quality and what it can do to us. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you, Ms. Shawnee. Thank you for allowing me to be here this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Yes. So I met you some time ago. We actually worked together, so just put it out there, But when I met you, I was very, so happy to see you because you don't typically see young men as yourself interested in world affairs, right? Yeah, and you have a very, very big job. You're an engineer, and tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so I help to write regulations to protect the earth and the environment, and particularly human health as well. What I do specifically is write air regulations to prevent exposure to different types of air pollution, and to ensure that folks can breathe good air. I also help in the development of regulations to reduce the effects of climate change as well. So right now I'm actually leading a reg to protect against the use of toxic chemicals. So I have a few things under my belt that I'm working on, that I have been working on between my time at the state of Maryland and also at EPA.
Awesome. So I know you probably hate this phrase, but if I had to ask you to dumb it down, help me understand air.
Yeah. I mean, it's what we breathe. It's what's essential to life, right? You breathe air. It's one of the things that are necessary. You learn that in basic science. You learn that in school. You learn that even before you're in school, that you need to breathe in order to live. So in terms of air, it's just a necessary and absolutely critical thing that we need in life, along with the water and other, essential elements that this earth offers. You can't live out of the earth because there is no air, breathable air there.
We'll be done.
So yeah.
Okay, so the air quality today, and I guess it's really interesting to me because as of late we've experienced haze in our air because of smoke miles away coming over and affecting the air as we know it, the air quality as we know it in Baltimore City. And that got me interested. It's like, wow, what are the hidden factors in air that really control the inside? How does it affect one's mood? How does it affect health? And it got me interested. And I said, let me call Josh.
Yeah.
He can help me understand. So break it down for me, please.
Yeah. I think the wildfires in Canada really opened up our eyes to the fact that, we breathe air, but air is made up of things that oftentimes there's air is mixed in or can be mixed in with other components that if you don't know what it is, it can actually be bad for your health. But in the case of the wildfires, yes, that was visible. That was something you can actually see, and so that hey, this is kind of like water that's dirty. You wouldn't want to drink water that's dirty. Mm-hmm. You want the water to be clean. Kind of very similar with the air. With the wildfires, it's very easy to see that the air is dirty. We don't want to breathe that stuff. However, there are also kind of hidden air pollution, sort like hidden things that make air bad. That sometimes is not visible. That can be mixed in with the air, and so kind of like this bottle of water that you see here. Well, if there was a clear chemical that was mixed in with this water, though it looks clean, it could actually be very bad for you. Same thing with air. So when it comes to just kind of like, and another thing that I think is worth mentioning is that air, there's no cage to keep air contained, right? So what's happening in Canada can migrate and move over and affect what's happening here in Maryland because of wind transport. You literally have wind cycle, meteorological, or just weather patterns that can transport air from one location to another, which is why even in the environmental world, we're not only concerned about what's happening within we're in Maryland within state lines, but we're also concerned with what's happening in other states because what's happening in other states can actually migrate and move and affect what's happening where you are. So there's a lot of interest in not only local kind of air quality, but also in the events of things that are happening outside of us, just like how we saw with the Canadian wildfires and how this event that's hundreds of miles away, we felt the effects where we are. So air quality is becoming a really huge topic along with climate change because we now see and recognize that we don't want to take the air that we breathe for granted. Mm-hmm. And so we want to ensure that the air that we're breathing is good and is contributing to a healthy life.
I think you need to define what you do better.
Yeah, so just to elaborate, I regulate the use of toxic chemicals and also regulate how different chemicals that may affect how we what we breathe. So I help to lead the development of these regulations or rules, which involves meeting with stakeholders, the sources themselves, or environmentalists, or people who are just interested in the topic. So there are rules that affect how these chemicals are used, and it's my job to ensure that these chemicals are being used in a very safe and environmentally friendly manner.
That's a big job.
Yeah, I mean, one in which honestly, I'm just grateful that I'm in. It's a world that I was interested in when I was in college. I have a degree in chemical engineering, as you mentioned, but I always had an interest in environmental, just the field. And so when I found an opportunity to work on this topic, I used to work for the Air Quality Regulations Development Division. When I had found this opportunity, I took on it. I think it's a very noble job, it's a very honorable position to do what you can to protect the human health and the environment.
Yeah, that's a big deal because I grew up inner city Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think my parents or their parents were ever educated on air quality.
Yeah.
So I never learned about what's important, let me take it back. I did learn that secondhand smoke is probably one of the number one killers of human beings in this world, mm-hmm. right? You don't even have to light a cigarette and you can die from lung cancer. So I did learn that. Yeah. But outside of that, I didn't learn anything else about, smokestacks and, what smog really was. So help me out.
Yeah, because the concern is what I'm going to eat. What do I have a roof over my head? Right? Mm-hmm. Like that's the focus, and that should be the focus, priority. But what sometimes we don't realize again is that there are different external or things outside of the body that affects what's happening in the body, right? The food you eat can have an effect on how you are. What you ingest, I mentioned, what you apply on your body, what you inject, but also what you breathe, right? They're really just two ways in which things enter your body, your mouth and what you breathe. And so oftentimes the focus is on the mouth and what you're putting inside of your mouth, but there also needs to be a focus on what you're breathing and what you're inhaling. Yes, you mentioned the secondhand smoke and people realizing that was bad for kids, that I shouldn't be smoking around babies or younger kids and toddlers who have their lungs that are developing. And so, you're creating a problem that way. But also it's important for adults to recognize and to see and to check, wait, what am I breathing? Especially in communities like Baltimore, where there are different types of injustices that are happening, including when it comes to environmental injustices as well.
Yeah, and that's really the big term that we hear thrown around pretty casually, but and that term is environmental justice. There are so many definitions, but if I had to dumb it down, and I use that terminology and people are offended by it, but really just make it plain is what I really mean. Environmental injustice for areas that I grew up in would mean not getting a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So you have these big industries coming in, our neighborhoods, and they're setting up shop and they're tossing out trash and they're blowing smoke out the chimney and stuff like that. And we feel, just because we're just so regular residents that we don't have a say. But we do.
Yeah. I mean, that's the area that I've been in for the past 8 years is regulatory development. Or in other words, if there is an entity that's going to come into a certain area, what rules do they have to follow to ensure that the people who are in that area are not negatively impacted by the production or manufacturing or whatever is happening within that plant? And so what people don't realize is that there is this seat that everybody has access to in terms of participating in the rural development process, right? Again, our focus is typically on, hey, right, do we have enough, to take care of ourselves without giving too much thought into what we're actually breathing in our air. So it's important that communities, especially low-income communities, where there is a correlation between where you are and what you're breathing. Environmental justice, the term that you spoke about, right, is this disparity that exists between low-income communities and what they're breathing and rich people and what they're breathing. I think if I was to to make it simpler and make it plain, that's the difference. What I'm breathing in my community sometimes is very different than what other people are breathing. And so it's important to try to be involved in making the decision of, wait, what is it that I'm breathing? There's a seat at the table when it comes to rural development, policy development. It's a open public participation process, and folks need to know that they can actually be involved and be present to help to inform, shape what these rules will ultimately be that can lead to what they're breathing.
Okay, so how would I, Susie Homemaker, and living in Walbrook Junction, show up at one of these meetings?
Yeah. I mean, one on Maryland Department of the Environment on their website, the Environmental Protection Agency, their website. I think agencies in general can always all do a better job at ensuring that everybody who is potentially impacted by an action should be in the know whenever decisions are being made. And you're starting to see that a little bit. Sometimes when you're driving, you'll see signs up that says, hey, we're having a meeting about this entity or this company coming in. Let's hear what you have to say. Sometimes you see, notices in newspapers, sometimes on the news, but, just paying attention to whenever things like this are happening, paying attention to what's happening in your neighborhood and, whether it's new businesses that are coming in, these type of knowledge and awareness of the changes that are happening, these business coming in is really important. And our part is really to pay attention, and sometimes, going outside of our normal, instead of searching, where can I buy the latest X, Y, and Z, searching, hey, what's happening in my neighborhood? What new businesses are coming? What permits is the Maryland Department of the Environment or Environmental Protection Agency dishing out that may affect me? So paying attention to those, that type of information is really important, so that you can be present and that you can be, ensure that your voice is heard whenever decisions are being made.
Okay, that's real. So we talked about air quality, but can you just give like small examples of pollution? Because, like I said, as a kid, we focused on secondhand smoke and then, of course, smog we were taught about. But can you just...
Absolutely. So when you talk about pollution, you're talking about what are the pollution sources? What can create and emit some things that are bad that can potentially affect the air that I'm breathing? Well, you're talking about power plants. Plants burn fuel for the sake of energy, but there are byproducts from the burning of fuel. So, power plants are a big source that a lot of people are aware of. Any type of factory, whether it's manufacturing chemicals, things, that can be another pollution source, because again, anytime you have the burning of something, you have a potential source for pollutions. One that many people may not be aware of, but should be aware of, cars, right? Cars are a big emission source. One of the largest contributions to climate change comes from the pipes of vehicles. So, and what's unfortunate is that, studies show that where you have low income communities, you also have kind of highways and major roadways, and that traffic is bringing in pollution to communities. So these are the different sources of air pollution that we need to be cognizant and need to be made aware of and to know about, so that we know, what are potential places, sources that may be contributing to negative or poor air quality.
Yeah, you mentioned a few businesses, but I also want to add into it crematories, like funeral homes.
Yeah.
When you're cremated, you've gone away from here, but you are definitely spread amongst the city or state that you live in. So that's a big thing.
Yeah. Anywhere where you have the burning of something, the creating of something, the use of chemicals on a mass scale. Sometimes it's visible, right? You drive on 95, you see that big smokestack that says Baltimore written on it. Paying attention to what kind of air is coming out of that type of source. But sometimes it's visible, and sadly sometimes it's not visible. Sometimes these chemicals blend into the air so that you're breathing it, and you may not realize that what you're breathing could be potentially harmful. Like
gas.
Yeah.
When you go pump gas in your car, there is still. So yeah. Okay. Wow, that's a lot of information. I can't even begin to unpack it now, because I look at what I see in a daily basis different based on what you said.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks for that. So tell me a little bit about your childhood, when you felt like, this whole earth air quality thing was your lane.
Yeah. So I was born in New York to a Nigerian parents, so I'm first generation American. But I grew up in New York till I was really young, and then we moved down south to Richmond, Virginia, where I spent the majority of my childhood. Found my way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I went to school, studied chemical engineering. That was my area of interest. I wanted to, create the next generation of chemicals. But then I started thinking, wait, what happens when chemicals are created? And I started looking at the process, and anytime you create a chemical, you're creating a byproduct. There's something else. The basic formula that took me 4 years to get in school, because I almost failed school, but I didn't, thank you, Lord. But the basic formula that we learned in chemical engineering is N equals out. Whatever you put in is going to come out somewhere. And so before I got to school, I was interested in what's going in. then I started getting interested in, wait, what's coming out? And that's when my eyes began to be open to the environmental studies and environmental engineering in general, and that there is a safe, environmentally sound way in which you can do engineering. I took a detour to the nonprofit world where I was in energy conservation and helping communities to save energy, but then opportunity came to work for the Maryland Department of the Environment as a regulatory compliance engineer. And what that enabled me to do was to combine my kind of technical engineering background to this policy, regulation, rule formation work. And in doing so, I was able to kind of just build upon my technical training into this into the environmental field.
Oh, that's good. So, Joshua, how did you feel in this space?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are one of few,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in a big world of engineers now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the kind of person where I feel if I'm passionate about something, if I want to do something, I go and do it no matter what those who look around me, how they look. And so, I found this, discovered it, and pursued it. Yes, got there and discovered, wow, there's not a lot of just young black people who are interested in environmental engineering in general and in public service. And so, it was different. And yes, there weren't a lot of people that was relatable, but honestly, you find that, there are other interests that are common between you and the people that you're working with. And then also, I kind of see it as an opportunity to be a trailblazer for those coming up behind me, that there's this lane, this work lane, this professional lane that's available for anybody who's interested, and I can be, a conduit, exactly, someone to really connect people who look like me here as well. So I remember, one time we had an intern, a black intern, young black guy, and got his number, and I used to follow up with him. Now he's in the environmental field as well, and so it's really nice to be able to kind of show others the benefits and the rewards of kind of pursuing work that aligns with, one, what you believe, and then also just kind of, two, with actually a very just kind of good job. It's a really, really good, really nice paying job. So really, really grateful for this opportunity for myself, but also, being able to be the connection to others who may be interested in this line of work as well.
That's great. That's great. So would you suggest, how could we become a little more visible to attract like-minded people, as yourself, and try and gear them or direct them in the way of an engineering path?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one, there are a lot of initiatives to get younger than the next generation interested in STEM. That's science, technology, engineering, and math. And so, just continuing to pour resources into those initiatives to ensure that people know that this is a really good career path, a good professional career path that one can take. And of course, I've been in the public sector for so many years as well. I think it's really to make sure that people know that the public sector is another viable career path, that you don't need to just go work for a company, that you can actually work in public service for the good of an entity outside of yourself. In my case, it's the environment and public health, but there are a number of public serving, public facing kind of positions that are great career path that help you with the skill development, professional development, help you build a network, and ultimately can be very rewarding.
Yeah. So I also read in your bio that you're a pastor. So I am dying for you to open up about that, because it relates, definitely. So that's the hidden part of you.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I know you enough to know that every part of you relates to the other part.
Yeah.
So you want to take a minute and talk about?
Absolutely. In the professional world, it's taboo to talk about what your faith is, right? You keep your faith and your professionalism kind of separate. Well, I mean, I believe that Christianity connects your vocation to your calling, right? We spend more time kind of in our 40-hour job than we do at home, than we do at church, than we do with any other social circle. And so, the Bible is very clear that whatever you find your hand to do it with all your might.
That's right.
And in my case, in terms of environmental management, environmental studies, engineering, really I see it as almost a fulfilling of the God mandate when God took and created Adam, brought him to the garden, he brought him to the garden to tend it and to keep it. So God has this interest in the tendering and the keeping and the management of the earth that he created. And he's given us the responsibility to manage how we are treating and taking care of the earth. And so I kind of see my job as a one way to fulfill that mandate. In many ways, not knocking any other career path that people choose, but I see it as one in which, I'm fulfilling God's mandate. Take care of the creation, take care of the earth, make sure that people are, in an environment that can help them prosper physically. Earlier in the episode, we spoke about the connection between kind of the air quality and your health, right? So preserving and taking care of the earth is important for our physical well-being as well. So I've been very grateful to be in a career in which I'm ensuring or trying to do my part to ensure that that we live in an earth, in an environment in which people can thrive physically as well. So very, very grateful. I've been a pastor for less than a year, honestly. Still kind of new in terms of my role. Of course, I've been in church for much longer than that, but it's pretty exciting to be able to teach people the practical outworking of our faith, right? Where it's not only, heaven, we're trying to get ready for heaven, and so we need to try to get as many people to heaven. It's like, the Lord's Prayer says, "Thy kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." You see, again, Jesus even teaching his disciples the importance of taking care of the earth and ensuring that earth is functioning and operating in such a way as which God ordained it to be. So I see myself, very fortunate to be able to kind of teach people kind of this connection between our faith and the outworking of that and our responsibility and accountability that we have to manage the earth that we live in. So, topics like air quality is really important, even for Christians.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I could talk to you for hours, man. I'm having so much fun, but I know we can't. So I want to thank you. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's an open door, so if ever you feel like you want to return, come on back.
If you'll have me, if I ain't stumbled too much, I will be back for sure.
Please, don't even try. You are a beast. Absolutely. And thank you for taking my call.
No problem at all.
Hi, friends. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, follow, like, and share. You can also find out more about us, the Hidden Parts Podcast, as well as watch this recording and many others at my website, www.the-inner.me. Bye.